Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
Three rich friends arrived at a fancy restaurant for a medical school reunion, boasting about the successes they had achieved thanks to their parents. Soon, Olivia arrived, the one who had been laughed at during their studies while she worked hard and took care of her sick mother. Everyone expected her to look clumsy, but no one could have predicted what would happen next. Night covered the city. Tonight, the stars were particularly bright. On the top floor of a skyscraper that reached up to the heavens, there was a Michelin restaurant. This was no place for just anyone. Only truly successful and wealthy people could take the elevator to the very top to try the exquisite cuisine of a chef who had studied in Paris and had received countless awards. His hands knew their craft, they were as if guided by the hands of God. Through his dishes, guests could glimpse the gardens of Eden, experiencing true heavenly pleasure. That's why this place was chosen for one of the most important events of the year, the reunion. The entire restaurant was rented for them for the evening until the early hours of the morning. All 3 floors of luxury and wealth were at the disposal of the graduates of the prestigious medical faculty. Oh my God! Oh my God! The girls marveled as they stepped out of the elevator. They were greeted by a huge chandelier hanging from the roof, which was completely glassed in. The friends moved on. Some immediately ran to the photo session area, others ran to another floor to step outside and watch the city from such a great height. Laura, however, preferred to stay in the lobby, where soft music played as people were still arriving. From here, you get a great view of the stars, a guy said dreamily, and Laura saw a regular guy in a white t-shirt. Despite his simple outfit, he looked quite muscular, which immediately caught her attention. It was strange that they let him in dressed like that, but he must have had an invitation. Laura had never met him before. Maybe, when he was at university, he was less noticeable. Judging by his face and clothes, he was no ordinary guy. Now, he caught her attention because he was working out, and it was so simple. "Excuse me, do we know each other?" she asked, quite logically. Perhaps it was a bit rude to ask, since all the people there were graduates of a medical university. The security had checked the tickets very carefully, so there was no mistake. "Yes, I'm Manuel Pascual," the guy smiled. "Don't you remember me, Laura?" She blushed and was clearly embarrassed, but she couldn't recall this handsome guy. He wasn't there before. "I used to write you love notes and invite you on dates," Manuel explained. "Manuel Pascual, don't you remember?" "Yes, I think I remember. You used to wear glasses and always sat at the front desk, right under the teacher's nose." "Oh, yes. You were terribly boring, and there was nothing to talk about with you except studying. You insulted me with just a few sentences. You always had a way of doing that." "Well, you guessed it. Yes, that was me. You don't look like yourself. You've changed a lot. I hope for the better." "Are you kidding? You've turned into Apollo. There's no trace left of that guy. I thought you'd continued working at the department. You always dreamed of teaching, and you didn't like people like us." "Well, I've changed over the years of study. I don't know. In the graduation photos, you were still that same nerd. How many years have passed since graduation? 5? 7? Only 6, Laura. Not that much. I'm glad you completely transformed yourself, and it seems not just internally. Yes, I decided to get in shape a bit. Now I can carry my girlfriend without any effort," Manuel said, with a little air of pride. "You have a girlfriend?" It wasn't that Laura was upset. She had always turned Manuel down and never saw a future with him, but she felt a little hurt that he had become such a handsome guy and hadn't asked her to be together again. Maybe this time, she would have fallen for it. "Yes," Manuel blushed. "And who are you dating? Do I know her?" Well, Manuel didn't get the chance to answer. Laura's friend, Sophia, joined them. "Laura, what are you doing standing here? Everyone's taking pictures. We're waiting for you. What are you doing here?" "Oh, nothing. I ran into an old acquaintance, Laura smiled. Hello, Sophia nodded to Manuel. Are you two acquainted? Definitely with you. You were all in the same group. Always hanging out together. Looks like you've stayed friends all this time. Manuel? Sophia asked in surprise. No way. I can't believe it. Manuel shrugged shyly and walked over to the table where various drinks were set up. They hadn't been invited to their seats yet, so they needed to work up an appetite. What a turn of events. Sophia looked down in shock. I didn't even recognize him at first. Yeah. It took me some time too, Laura replied. That's the guy who used to flirt with you and write those silly notes? Yes, that was him. Laura watched him walk away. It felt as though she had missed the most important person in her life, and now she was kicking herself. It seemed like so many years had passed. He hadn't mattered to her before. But in the 10 minutes they had been talking, something clicked in her head, and she felt unbearably upset that she had missed out on such a good guy. On the other hand, he didn't seem that rich. Maybe he hadn't achieved anything in his career, unlike Laura. Let's go take some photos before the girls leave, Sophia said, taking Laura's hand and leading her to the photo zone. Valeria had already tried every pose for the best photos. You could tell she had gotten tangled up in it, but she had always been a fan of good pictures that would eventually end up on her social media. Of course, she was obsessed with Photoshop, and sometimes it showed, but her friends never mentioned it. The most important thing in their friendship was friendliness and love. Though Laura would call it something else, hypocrisy. Laura, sweetie, where have you been? Valeria came up to her. And no, it wasn't nervousness or concern. Laura knew exactly when Valeria was pretending to be sweet, but she could never hide her irritation. The barely noticeable frown on her brow and pursed lips gave away that she wasn't a positive person. I was just looking around, Laura replied. She decided not to mention the story with Manuel. She was tired of talking about the same person with different people. Valeria, Laura, and Sophia posed together, goofed around, and finally dispersed in different directions. They decided to go out on the balcony. To get there, they had to climb the stairs to the 3rd floor, where the exit to the street was. Laura felt the light, spring breeze. It smelled like lilacs, and she couldn't understand why until she saw the huge lilac bush, decorated with garlands and shining as if it were something magical. How did someone think of growing this on a rooftop? It was genius and at the same time so enchanting and unusual. This restaurant definitely deserved all its stars, and the stars in the sky only confirmed it. Beautiful, Laura whispered. She walked over to her friends, who were standing by the railing, looking down. I wonder if it's scary to fall from here. Sophia joked. What are you talking about? Valeria snapped. It's just a joke. We absolutely cannot fall. I didn't organize my life just to fall off the roof of a Michelin restaurant. Yeah, everyone here has their life well set up. Have you heard about Victoria? She opened her own dental clinic. Though her husband gave her money for the down payment to open it, now everything's fine with her. But she got divorced, didn't she? Laura asked. She had heard a lot of stories about this Victoria. She was involved in many things. Sometimes she was linked to affairs with various famous personalities, millionaires, or businessmen. Other times, she had endless divorces. In short, a controversial figure. She got divorced, but the clinic stayed. Now it's hers. Thanks to her husband for not taking this away from her. He could have. Well, it was her property. Well, according to the documents, things are a bit strange there, Valeria said, thinking. And the only one who isn't strange is you, Valeria, Sophia laughed. Yeah, not strange. I built everything myself. From scratch. And definitely not without your parents' help, her friend smirked. Oh, and what about you? Maybe you should stop judging parents' help. If they can afford it, why not? Besides, I didn't just finish medical school for nothing. To do girls' manicures, huh? Laura laughed. I don't do manicures, I run a studio. You girls come to me, silly. Valeria, calm down. We're just joking, Sophia smiled. The bell rang, signaling that the dining area was finally open. Guests began making their way downstairs to take their seats. There were many activities planned for the evening, including the award ceremony for successful graduates. The friends sat at a table by the window. The lighting was dim, creating an atmosphere of mystery and intrigue. Valeria studied every guest like a shark hunting for its prey. She was eager to gossip about someone, and soon her attention was caught by a middle-aged man, their anatomy professor. He had lectured them in their first year. A great man. Look, there's Viviano Torres, she whispered to her friends. Who? Sophia didn't understand. It always took her a while to catch on. Torres, Sophia, Valeria couldn't hold it in anymore. How could you forget? You almost got expelled because of him. Oh, the one I had to retake exams for 3 times? I remember him. I wish I could forget. And remember how he gave the highest grade automatically to the only female student? Olivia? How could I forget? Olivia was sitting in the library, reading yet another book to write the best paper on the assigned topic. She had always believed that books were the best helpers. Computers and the internet were fine, but books had always been and still remained the only accurate source of information. That's why Olivia preferred them. However, not even 10 minutes had passed when a shadow fell over her book. What are you reading? Asked the annoying voice of the very classmate Olivia couldn't stand. By the way, the feeling was mutual. Valeria wasn't alone. She was with her best friends, Sophia and Laura. They always hung out as a pack and mostly followed Valeria's lead. You could rarely find them in the library. They preferred spending their leisure time somewhere more bustling and noisy, like bars, clubs, or shopping malls. Especially since it was Friday today. But what did they need here? I'm trying to find information for my paper, Olivia replied, trying to stay friendly. A term paper? Interesting. Will you show us how you did it? Because after today, we'll probably need your help to avoid being kicked out of university. What happened today? Oh, you don't know? Valeria laughed, followed by her friend's laughter. Right, I forgot. You got the highest grade automatically, while the rest of us were sent to the exam. That's the news. Am I responsible for that? I worked for this all semester. And what about us? Valeria fumed. Didn't I work? Her shout echoed through the entire library. Quiet, someone yelled. Fine, she hissed. You know what? I'll pass this exam. I have money, unlike you. I'll pass the exam and get my diploma. You'll buy it, Olivia corrected her. If you say that, let's call things by their proper names. You're such a disgusting bitch, Olivia. No, I'm just fair and honest. Honesty isn't respected in this world. One day, you'll understand that. Good luck. Laura. Laura. Her friend whispered in her ear. Her voice seemed to come from a well, and that's when Laura realized she had drifted into her thoughts. What's wrong with you? Are you okay? Yeah, just remembered. What? Sophia asked. Well, Olivia. Oh, no need to remember. A gray mouse, not worthy of our attention. Always a bore and a bitch. Never helped anyone. In a word, a nasty fool. I wonder what's happened to her now. Why do you care about her fate? Valeria laughed. I didn't know people like you cared about such mediocrity. What do you mean, people like me? Well, Valeria hesitated, successful, respectable people. The elites of society. You think we're the elite? What, aren't we? We all have our own businesses. We've achieved everything. We get good income from it. We rule this world. Did we achieve this success ourselves? Do you know some other Laura, Valeria, or Sophia? Everything was handed to us on a silver platter by our parents. I won't argue. We were lucky to be born into wealthy families. But do we have the right to say that success is entirely our achievement? It wasn't our hard work, not the grueling effort. What are you talking about? I don't recognize you. Is this really you, Laura? Well, isn't it true? We never thought about anything seriously. We just paid for a diploma in this university. Our parents helped us open businesses. We just look good and know how to bat our eyelashes. Maybe that's why we don't have husbands or even boyfriends, because we're just empty. Laura, you're talking nonsense, Sophia defended her. Wouldn't a poor person, at the first opportunity, take advantage of all the blessings we have? Why choose a thorny path full of difficulties when you can simplify your life and live comfortably? Wouldn't you want to give up everything to achieve it on your own? No, but looking back at the past, I realized that I'm worth nothing. That all of this isn't mine. Everything was handed to me on a silver platter, and life seems meaningless. Well, life is a pleasure, at least for people like us, Valeria said. For those of us who are lucky. We should enjoy every moment of this paradise. Let the poor people figure out how to survive. We will make the most of all the gifts life has given us. Laura didn't respond to that. Yes, Valeria was right to some extent, but Laura still felt deceived. She had been deceiving herself her entire conscious life. Now, the past seemed like a game in which it was impossible to lose. There would always be a guardian angel to pull you out of any mess, and that guardian angel in their stories was always their parents. As long as they were alive, the children were safe. And although Laura and her friends had long been adults, they continued to benefit from the kindness of their ancestors. Why struggle when you don't have to? It's always easier to choose the simpler way. Everything in their lives could be bought: a beautiful life, a diploma, a house, a job, but not love and true friendship. Laura had long suspected that there was no sincerity or understanding in their friendship, the kind that defined true friendship. Instead, it was just a mask, a cover for society. They gathered together to stay lonely because each of them lacked the special gift that money couldn't buy: love. Laura had tried to build trusting and serious relationships, but she always lacked that quality that almost all people who had to work for everything possessed. That quality was the ability to take risks. People who have been wronged by life know how to take risks. They simply have nothing to lose. They rise from the very bottom. They rise, fall, but there's a thrill in them. If they've managed to rise once, they'll rise again. And that gives them the motivation not to give up. Unlike those people, Laura and her like-minded friends couldn't boast of such a skill. Since childhood, everything was given to them. The desire to achieve things on their own faded away. People are inherently lazy, and if they're given even the slightest excuse, even the smallest opportunity to not do something, you can be sure they won't do it. Isn't that why we procrastinate? There's an opportunity to be lazy today, because we can do the work tomorrow. That's always our motto. Anyway, we've drifted off topic a little. Laura was born into a wealthy family, which gave her everything a girl could wish for. As she grew older, her needs increased, but they continued to be met by her parents' money. And if she were to give it all up, she would never rise from the bottom. It's easy to fall from the third step and climb back up, but much harder to fall from the sky to the ground and rise again. Only a few are capable of that. That's why giving up all the wealth was like killing yourself and your identity. But did they even have an identity? They clung to the business that was handed to them. To their appearance, which they also had to maintain, spending huge amounts of money on taking care of a body that ages. And without the money, the wealth, and the name, who were they? Just empty shells. And these thoughts had been tormenting poor Laura for a long time. She understood that she meant nothing. That's why she couldn't find love, true love. Everywhere, There were only pretentious faces, every word about their feelings was a lie. Such people fall in love not with a person, not with their inner world, but with money, fame, and wealth, the three aspects that interest them. But those who are truly loved and who love find an entire world in others. They see their soul. And what soul can a person who has nothing to offer on their own have? A gathering of toxicity, vulgarity, and selfishness. That's all Sophia and Valeria had, but Laura didn't consider herself to be like them. She still thought she was capable of more, that she deserved better. She had the right to love, to be happy, and she wanted to achieve it. And maybe the answer was right in front of her. She just had to do one thing, take a risk. But could she? Could she give up everything life had automatically provided her with? The help of her parents, the business, the diploma that brought her nothing? A degree that was already gathering dust somewhere under her wardrobe. Doesn't all this so-called elite society ever think about this? But in the end, Laura came to the conclusion, not everyone is like her and her friends. In the hall she was sitting in now, there were many people, and they all had different views on life, different principles and goals, and different things satisfied them. For example, Victoria, who had been divorced several times, had long accepted and recognized the fact that she didn't achieve everything by herself, but that fact didn't bother her. A person can achieve what they want in various ways, and Laura didn't want to judge her for it. And Laura also understood that her friends were exactly the same, except that unlike Victoria, they had opened their businesses with their parents' money, not their husbands'. And Laura didn't want to be counted among them. She had always believed that the joy of success lay not in what was achieved, but in the process. The reward, the true success and happiness, was in the rest after hard work. It was a shame her friends didn't share the same view. They cared more about the result than how they achieved the goal. I am honored to welcome our dear graduates to this truly luxurious celebration, the reunion. The host came on stage. He looked very well-groomed, holding a paper in his hands, which was a prompt for his speech. This is an important event for all of us. This celebration happens every year, but each generation has its own year. According to university rules, it's held 6 years after graduation. And I'm glad that the time has finally come for you, my dear. The hall applauded. Valeria looked as though she was ready to leap out of her dress just to get attention. But today, no one cared about her. Everyone's eyes were on the stage. I hope you enjoy this wonderful evening in this amazing restaurant, savoring culinary masterpieces and gazing at the starry sky. We're lucky, there are no clouds. That means you'll see every star. Don't miss your chance. I will say goodbye for now and return once we announce the most successful graduates who have achieved much through their hard work and determination. The host left the stage, and the audience in the hall immediately leaned toward the menu. Each table had its own waiter who would accompany the guests throughout the evening. Good evening. My name is Nicholas. Have you decided what you'll be ordering? He casually asked Laura and her friends. Valeria quickly answered first and ordered the best dishes from the menu. Then Sophia placed her order. Laura, what about you? Have you decided? Sophia asked. Me? I think I'll decide later, Laura replied. The waiter nodded and walked away. She slowly stood up from her chair and stared out the panoramic window. Laura, what's going on with you? Valeria hissed, annoyed. I don't even recognize you. Did you take something before coming here? Not funny, Valeria, Sophia remarked. Laura, are you feeling okay? No, I'm fine. I just need some fresh air. Did talking about Olivia make you feel bad? Valeria kept going, looking at her fresh manicure. She always did this to pretend she didn't care about the person she was talking to. Laura, sit down, let's talk about this. About what? Laura raised an eyebrow in surprise. Sit down, please, people are watching. So what? Laura, spend the evening with us. Don't run off now, Sophia pleaded. Laura gave in and reluctantly sat back down. She really wanted to get some fresh air, but since all the guests were here now, it would be rude. However, there was one person she didn't see. Manuel had disappeared. Although she could have sworn she saw him just a few minutes ago at the other end of the hall. He had been sitting with a group of other guys, but now he was gone. Had he also gone outside to get some air? And why did his presence affect Laura so much? Valeria was engrossed in her phone screen, and her eyes were growing wider by the second. Sophia, who was sitting closer to her, leaned over and became curious about what Valeria was looking at. "Who's that?" "Don't you know?" "Amanda Bruce." "But that's her stage name, of course, but I'm shocked that you don't know her." "You're going to tell me, or are you just going to keep being surprised?" "Laura, you don't know either?" "I've seen her on various TV shows. She comes to interviews just like singers. I think she even graduated from our university a year after me. She now runs her own plastic surgery clinic. I follow her all the time. She just posted about receiving an award today." "Oh my God, why today?" "I'd love to meet her." "I don't get what you see in her," Sophia asked, surprised. "She's a real monster, not a woman." "Well, of course, in a good way. She manages to take care of herself, run her business, speak at serious scientific conferences, and even perform some of the most complicated plastic surgeries. It's truly miraculous. I'm a fan of hers. You've really sold her to me. Now I want to meet her too. Connections like that are always useful. Maybe she'll give some good advice." That evening, it wasn't just Laura and her friends gossiping. The place was full of people who were ready to gossip about everyone, and there were plenty of rumors going around. "Remember that Pamela?" Rafaela laughed. "She was the life of the party today, entertaining everyone by recalling stories from university." "Which Pamela?" Ramona asked. "Oh, not Pamela. I forgot her name. She dropped out of university a year before graduation. Remember? We couldn't understand why for a long time." "That wasn't Pamela, that was Olivia," another person corrected her. "Yeah, actually, I feel sorry for her." Olivia's legs were shaking, but she walked confidently down the corridor, holding the precious paper in her hands. She hoped the dean's office would approve her request. They couldn't possibly refuse her. "Hello, I'd like to submit a request for expulsion," she said as she entered the office. It was hard for her to say those words, but she did it. She took a deep breath and said everything. "Expulsion?" the secretary asked, surprised. "You're Olivia Santana, right?" "Yes, But you only have 1 year left. You're about to graduate with honors. Is this your final decision? Think carefully. I understand, but I have no other choice. My mother is sick and can no longer work. She was the one supporting us. I'm sorry, but is that really a reason to jeopardize your future? You don't have to expel yourself. The option of part-time studies doesn't work for me either. I'll have to work." "There won't be time left for studying," Olivia said. "Why not take a leave of absence?" "I don't know. I don't know how long my mother will be sick, and you can extend your leave as much as you want. It will help you keep your academic standing. And then you can just finish the last year. It's summer now. You've passed all your exams. Of course, I know this might not sound ideal. But you're lucky that your mother, well, got sick in the summer. You managed to finish the penultimate year." "Thank you, but that doesn't bring me any happiness," Olivia frowned. "So, should I submit the request for a leave of absence?" "If you want to continue your studies later, yes." Of course, Olivia dreamed of finishing university. She had fought hard to get here, spent so long passing exams. She had prepared for them even longer. Her mother couldn't pay for her tuition, so Olivia had to take matters into her own hands. While her peers were out having fun, enjoying life, she was studying for exams. She passed them excellently and was finally able to enroll. The education wasn't easy, but thanks to her perseverance, she managed to meet all the deadlines, and she didn't want to throw away all those years of effort. Olivia walked out of the office, deep in thought, and didn't immediately notice Laura standing in front of her. "Hi," the girl greeted her cheerfully. "What are you doing here?" "Me? Well, I just submitted a request." Olivia hid the paper behind her back. "A request? Where? Are you signing up for something?" "I'm leaving," Olivia said. At that moment, it wasn't a lie. She had indeed decided to leave, though she was still unsure of how to proceed. And Laura needed a clear and definite answer. She wouldn't let it go. "What do you mean? Why?" Laura panicked immediately. Olivia didn't understand such a reaction. They had never been close, were from different worlds, made of different stuff. And why Laura cared so much was a mystery to her. "My mother, she's sick, and I have to take care of her," Olivia barely managed to get the words out. "But there's only 1 year left. You can't just quit everything like this? Between my mother and my career, I'll choose my mother." "You're such a fool," Valeria's voice came from behind, and Olivia noticed Valeria and Sophia, who had apparently been standing there all along. This made her so angry that she shoved Laura aside and ran toward the elevator, pressing the button for the first floor. Her leave of absence was approved, and she shared the good news with her mother. "Darling," her mother responded in a hoarse voice, "you shouldn't have made such sacrifices. I don't have much time left." "Mom, don't say that. We'll get you better. It's the 21st century, we'll find a cure, and you'll get better." "Oh, I'm afraid it's impossible. And you know it too. It wasn't for nothing that you studied at university all these years, was it?" "No. You're completely wrong." "Don't argue with me," Olivia replied, her tone deliberately upbeat. Olivia encouraged her mother as best she could, but deep down, she understood she was trying to avoid the inevitable. Her mother had stage 4 stomach cancer. She had already had part of her stomach removed, just so she could live a little longer. Her mother said it only prolonged her suffering. "Don't say that," Olivia urged. "They did the right thing. They stopped the disease from spreading to other organs." "Darling," her mother whispered, "sweetie, come closer." Olivia leaned down to her mother's lips as close as she could. "I'm not going to make it," her mother said, "and we both know it. Let's not pretend." She coughed. "I want you to fulfill my last wish. Will you do that?" "Whatever you want," Olivia agreed with tears in her eyes. "Don't give up on your work. You have a talent for it. You've been passionate about medicine since you were a child, so don't ruin your future because of the difficulties you face. My death should not be an obstacle for you. Do you understand? Don't you dare lose hope or give up. You have a brilliant future ahead of you if you don't give up." "Mom, how can I go on without you?" Olivia broke down, tears flowing freely. "How will I manage without you and your advice? Mom, I have no one else but you." Remember, her mother took her hand and looked seriously into her blue eyes. In life, there comes a moment when you think the road is over, when everything is finished. But remember, you come into this world alone, and you leave alone. You can't trust anyone, and you can't depend on anyone. People are cruel. They'll look for any way to hurt you. Especially the rich, who think the world is at their feet, but they're deeply mistaken. People who don't know pain are naturally unhappy. They'll never taste the sweetness of victory like you will, as you overcome every obstacle. I can't be like them, Mom. I'm not like that. Not like that. Just because you don't have toxicity and resentment toward the world doesn't mean something's wrong with you. You'll achieve much more if you want to. But it will take a lot of effort. But I know you'll manage. You've always been a fighter. You have the spirit of a soldier, and you'll handle everything, even alone. Do you understand? Mom, I promise me? I promise, Olivia exhaled, realizing that her mother needed to hear exactly that. She had to know that her daughter wouldn't fall. Her mother didn't die immediately. She faded away before Olivia's eyes. While Olivia worked day and night as an orderly at the hospital, trying to earn money for her mother's medicine, her mother was quietly dying in that same hospital. For the last 3 months, she barely ate or drank. Her legs looked like 2 sticks. She would never be able to get up again. Her arms were covered with bruises and hematomas from the injections and medications being administered directly into her veins. Her mind was clouded. She often didn't recognize Olivia, and soon she stopped speaking altogether, sleeping most of the time. Olivia understood that the inevitable end was coming and mentally prepared herself for it. Her mother died a year and a half after being diagnosed with a malignant tumor. Olivia couldn't shake her grief after her death, but she remembered what her mother had told her to do, the opposite of mourning. There was no time for sorrow. She had to strive for the top, and her motivation was her mother's memory and the promise she made to her. "Looks like there's a live broadcast," Valeria shouted, immediately tuning in. "What live broadcast?" Laura didn't understand. They had been talking about something unclear, and Laura had already lost track of the conversation. She was just watching Manuel, who still hadn't returned. "Well, Laura, I've been telling you about Amanda Bruce for 15 minutes. How could you forget?" "Sorry. And what's in this broadcast?" "Her award ceremony. But it looks like it's already happened. She's there, holding her statuette, waving to everyone." "We missed it." Valeria lowered her head in disappointment. Laura rolled her eyes and was about to go outside. She had been sitting there for over an hour and didn't want to eat anymore, but she hadn't even gotten up yet. Rosalinda, one of her former classmates, ran over to them. "Girls, guess what we've done?" She squealed excitedly. Here was an adult acting like a little child just to have fun. Laura braced herself for the worst. "Well, tell us already," Valeria demanded. She couldn't stand such teasing. "We called Olivia," Rafaela laughed, jokingly nudging Rosalinda, "invited her here." "But she didn't finish university," Laura said, realizing where this was going. "Well, why not have a little fun with her? Besides, she agreed to come." "But did you tell her it's for university graduates only and that she needed an invitation to get in? Otherwise, the joke wouldn't have worked. Don't ruin the fun, Laura." "So, she really agreed?" Valeria laughed. "Is she really not ashamed to come? She probably just finished her shift as a hospital orderly in some provincial hospital. You think she's still working as an orderly? Well, of course, where else could a person without a degree go? But if not as an orderly, then as a cleaner, she wasn't capable of more. But I won't judge her. All professions are important. You, for example," she turned to the waiter standing near their table, waiting for new orders or requests. "What did you study?" "College," the young man answered seriously. "What did you study for?" "To be a cook." "So why didn't you become a cook?" "I was expelled," the waiter shrugged. He quickly tried to avert his gaze, feeling uncomfortable. Laura realized that her friend had put the poor waiter in an awkward position and immediately asked her to stand up and step aside so they could talk privately. "What's going on?" Valeria asked, surprised. "Why do you hate Olivia so much? What did she do to you?" "Who told you I hate her?" "You encourage these jokes about her. This has been going on since university. You couldn't stand her back then. Because she was a useless upstart, trying to please the professors. But life punished her." "Are you really saying this seriously?" "Absolutely." "Oh my God, stop being so uptight. When Olivia came up, you completely changed. What's wrong with you?" "I don't approve of or support these kinds of jokes. We're not teenagers anymore to bully someone for no reason," Laura said. "What do you mean, for no reason? She ruined our entire student life." Do you remember how she sold us out to the dean when we asked her to mark us present in class while we didn't show up? She's a real rat, and all the professors were always on her side. Honestly, it's a good thing her mother died. She got what she deserved." Laura contorted her face in disgust. Those words felt like a sharp knife cutting through her throat. They weren't even directed at her, yet she felt hurt as if they were. "How can you even say such awful things?" she retorted, furious. "Does someone else's misery bring you joy? Someone else's misery isn't my misery. Besides, the people who are left behind are no longer my competitors. They're nobody to me. Oh my God, when did you become like this? It's as if there's no soul in you. Was it always like this? Or is it just that I'm only seeing it now? How could I have not noticed the cruelty you've been capable of all these years? You're a real monster. You've always stepped on others to get ahead, and you'll keep doing it." Valeria narrowed her brows. "What are you implying? Do you think I'm a bad person?" "You disgust me," Laura threw at her and was about to head toward the stairs to leave, but Valeria grabbed her arm. Her friend's eyes were full of hatred and anger. It seemed like she was about to lash out at Laura like a bull seeing a red cape, but the situation was quickly diffused by an unexpected guest. The hall suddenly erupted in applause, and everyone stood up, continuing to clap. Laura and Valeria were confused, but Valeria had already let go of her friend and started watching the person entering the hall. At first, Laura saw Manuel. He was walking between the tables toward the stage, smiling. Laura couldn't understand why people were applauding him. He wasn't really known to anyone. A gray mouse. Why were all these people looking at him with such admiration? Or maybe they were looking at someone else. Behind Manuel, to loud applause, entered she. It was as if she had stepped out of the phone screen and appeared here. Laura couldn't believe her eyes. It was her. Amanda Brooks. Who could have let her in? This was a closed event, only for the 2018 graduates. Amanda Brooks had no connection to this. She was wearing the same outfit as at the award ceremony. The dress shimmered in gold. The jewelry reflected the chandelier light. It was a divine image. Laura looked at her friend, who was standing there with her mouth open, silently applauding. Meanwhile, Amanda Brooks made her way to the stage, where she was politely handed a microphone. "Hello, dear friends," she exclaimed, and the hall clapped even louder. "I'm so glad to see you here. Honestly, this morning I didn't think I'd end up at such an event. I thought I'd get my award and go celebrate at home, but I'm so happy to have received an invitation here from such wonderful people I haven't seen in so long. I came here right after the ceremony, so don't judge me too harshly. I didn't prepare a speech," she laughed. Laura noticed Manuel, who was standing at the edge of the stage, looking at the woman with admiration and love in his eyes. It was strange. How could he feel this way about Amanda Brooks? She had never spoken about her personal life, but Laura would never have thought, or even imagined, that Manuel might have any romantic relationship with her. Laura immediately dismissed that thought because it seemed impossible. Amanda Brooks had no time for personal life. She was focused on her career. That was obvious from her social media activities. On the other hand, happiness loves silence. Laura was confused. "You know, receiving awards is certainly exciting, but tonight is especially special for me. Not just because I'm standing here before you, but because I see the faces of people I once studied with," Amanda continued, and her voice sounded warm and sincere. A smile played on her lips, but there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. "I remember how we sat at the same desk, how we prepared for exams, how we dreamed about the future. Sometimes those dreams were so vivid, it felt like they would definitely come true." She paused briefly. Her gaze landed on Laura and Valeria, but there was no anger in it, just a hint of regret. They still couldn't understand what this woman, who had no connection to them, was talking about. And then something clicked in Laura's mind. She looked at Amanda with new eyes and suddenly saw someone she hadn't met in many years. Someone whose fate they had discussed earlier today. It was Olivia. There were other dreams too, perhaps more grounded, Amanda continued. Not all of us became successful doctors, she nodded toward Laura and Valeria. Her tone had a touch of irony, but it wasn't mean-spirited. But life isn't always a straight path. Each of us had our own obstacles, our own losses, her voice softened, and a note of pain was heard. I too faced difficulties that made me abandon my plans. She looked at Manuel and smiled tenderly at him. He answered with a shy, loving look. But I didn't give up. And here I am. When I received the invitation to this party, I was surprised and even a little scared. I didn't expect that anyone would want to share these memories with me. She paused again, looking directly into the eyes of her former classmates, especially Rosalinda. Laura recognized her voice from the phone right away. Over the years, I've learned a lot, and one of the most important lessons was that true success isn't just about career and recognition, but about the ability to overcome obstacles. It's important to always be honest with yourself. Sometimes we make choices that we later regret. Sometimes we judge people without cause. She glanced again at Laura and Valeria, but this time there was no reproach in her gaze. Only a barely noticeable pity. But it's important to learn from your mistakes and strive for better. Thank you for your applause, and thank you for your invitation, she smiled even wider. Something else flickered in her eyes. Something more than just respect. She was proud of herself. She knew she had achieved what she had always dreamed of. What her mother had wished for her. I'll probably never forget this evening, and with that, I'll end. Have a pleasant evening, everyone. The audience applauded, though many stood with stunned faces, especially Valeria, who couldn't find her place. To her, it seemed like some kind of ironic twist of fate. Olivia bowed and approached Manuel, gently kissing him. They descended from the stage and took a free table, led by a waiter, while Laura stood at a distance, watching how they chatted sweetly. It turned out the previous version was true. They were indeed a couple. Laura couldn't believe it. It was just madness. She didn't dare approach them, though the curiosity tightened around her throat and lungs. She wanted to know everything about Olivia's fate. How had her life turned out in such a way that she had succeeded despite all the obstacles? Manuel seemed to hear her thoughts. He waved her over with a friendly gesture. Laura couldn't ignore it. She had to go. Valeria stood by the column, trying to collect herself. Good evening, Laura sat down at their table. Hi, Laura, Olivia smiled. I'm glad to see you in good health. We haven't seen each other in so long. Will you tell me how you've been? I thought I was supposed to be the one asking questions, the girl laughed. Really? Did you want to know something? Yes, for example, how did you become Amanda Brooks? You were always Olivia, and then such a transformation? Well, it's just a pseudonym. I would never change the name my mother gave me. But why? Or rather, how did it happen? Do you want me to tell you the entire story of my life? I'd love to, of course, but time is not unlimited. And people are already giving us strange looks. I just want to understand how you managed to rise from rock bottom. Oh, you put it quite well, Olivia straightened her back. Well, after my mother died, I really was at rock bottom. To escape, I worked several shifts in a row, forgetting about sleep and food. I wanted to work. Sometimes I even wondered what would have happened if I had died in such hard labor. But the head doctor stopped me. He knew everything about me. About how I ended up there and why I kept working so hard day and night. It was deep into the night. Olivia had just finished mopping the floors and leaned against the wall to catch her breath. A rather plump woman approached her from the dark corridor. When the blue light of the special night lamps hit her, Olivia immediately noticed the sad smile on her face. For some reason, this woman always reminded her of her mother. Probably because of her sincere kindness and desire to help, even though it wasn't always possible. Olivia, are you still here? She asked. Yes, Senora Ramos, the girl nodded. Maybe that's enough? What do you mean? Working like a slave. I understand that it's hard to cope with the grief of loss, but your mother died 3 months ago. It's time to take charge of your own life. I don't quite understand what you're getting at. Don't be silly. I want you to quit right now and go back to university. You need to finish your studies. Your mother wanted that. Remember? How do you know that? The girl almost snapped. She told me a lot about you. And you yourself said you'd return from academic leave. Well, that time has come. I don't think I'm ready to leave yet. I need more time. How much more time? It's been long enough. You need to move forward, Olivia, if you don't want to stay here forever. Believe me, this job quickly sucks you in like quicksand, and after a while, this stability starts to suit you. You won't be striving for anything more. Olivia was numb from her thoughts and only came to her senses when Manuel waved his hand in front of her. Anyway, she was an amazing woman. She helped me get back on my feet. Thanks to her, I graduated from university with honors, Olivia finished. I'm sorry for how I treated you, Laura suddenly confessed. What do you mean? Oh, don't tell me you've forgotten about the teasing with Valeria. You even hinted at it today when you spoke on stage. I just want to apologize. Your apologies are not necessary, Olivia smiled. You didn't do anything wrong to me. But Valeria could at least have acknowledged me with a look. Laura glanced at her friend. She was still standing by the column. A man had even approached her, offering to help. She didn't look at Olivia at all. It was understandable. For several years, she had seen someone completely different in her, someone much more successful than herself. And the fact that this superstar in medicine turned out to be her most hated rival from university, not just a rival, but one she had always considered insignificant, completely stunned Valeria. I think life has already punished her, Laura answered. I don't wish you any harm. Don't think that I've ever gossiped about you. I just wanted to close the chapter of the past, Olivia said honestly. So, you really did finish university? A year later, Olivia nodded. They offered me a job at the department, but I completely immersed myself in science. And then came the opportunity to open my own clinic. And you perform plastic surgeries yourself? Not all of them. The doctors in my clinic are trained in my method. We try to make the face look natural, emphasizing the features that are key when looking at a person. So that's why we didn't recognize you right away? You changed your appearance? I changed my whole life. I completely changed my lifestyle. I enjoy bringing benefit to this world, to science, to people who only need a few cuts on their skin to become the perfect version of themselves. I changed myself too, why not? In the 21st century, no one will judge me for that. And if they do, I don't care. But you can't even tell you've had surgery. It's a miracle. Well, that means I'm doing something right if people like it. I'm glad you appreciate it. You definitely didn't get the award for nothing. You're the genius of our time. Oh, stop flattering me. I'm getting embarrassed, Olivia laughed. Then Laura turned her attention to Manuel, who had been sitting silently beside them, embracing Olivia the whole time. Sorry for asking, but are you two together? Laura dared to ask. Yes, you're absolutely right, Olivia smiled. We've been married for 2 years, and we've been together much longer. I never would have thought that. That two little mice would end up together? Well, that's life. You can't call yourselves little mice now. You're stars. But Manuel, why didn't you say anything right away? About what? About my wife? He laughed. I said it, but you went to your friends, and then I got bored, so I went to talk to Olivia on the phone. She was so nervous before the award ceremony. You can't imagine. So that's why you went out to the balcony? You're starting to scare me. When did you become a stalker? Sorry, it's just that I learned so much today. I'll need a long time to process all this information. And what about you? What have you become? Olivia suddenly asked out of the blue. Me? Laura was surprised. What do you mean? Well, in the most direct sense. Do you have your own business? I heard you opened a business. What field? I haven't opened anything, Laura lowered her head. I just took an idea and money from my father. I don't have anything of my own. Oh, don't put yourself down, her companion encouraged her. I wish that were true, but unfortunately, I really haven't achieved anything on my own in life. Without my parents, I would still be just a nobody, a gray mass in this vast world full of people who never achieve anything. Why do you say that? You've always been very smart. I remember how you answered at every seminar and then approached the professors after lectures, bombarding them with questions. True, your friends got angry with you, but that's just my observation. I don't want to judge what I don't know. You're right. Valeria and Sophia never cared about that. They just wanted to get a passing grade. And then their parents would cover for them. But your parents are also from a family with means. Then why did you want to go into medicine? It's clear that you were interested. I was interested, but they didn't let me go into science. My father said it wouldn't bring me any income, and now I regret it. You'd only regret it if you were lying in a coffin in the cold earth and nothing could be changed. But you're here. You're not dead or sick. And besides, you're still young. Nothing is stopping you now. I don't know how to take risks, Laura smiled. I've always admired you. The ability to go all the way, no matter what or who, is priceless. Everyone's afraid to take risks, Olivia smirked. The difference is that some people go against that fear. And some stay in jobs they hate or with people they don't love. They're afraid to leap into an abyss that has no bottom. Beautiful metaphors. Do you often talk like this with your patients during surgeries? I imagine it's not very calming. Well, metaphors always decorate our lives. Why not use them as often as possible? Olivia smiled. Laura nodded. The conversation had reached a dead end, and she still hadn't figured out her fears. The answer hadn't presented itself. No one had told her what to do next. But then Olivia asked, "Listen, how are things with your studies now?" Studies? Laura was surprised. I finished university a long time ago. Well, maybe you're doing something extra on the side. You must be doing something to achieve your goal? Well, as you can see, right now I'm just sitting in a chair, pretending to run a business. What kind of business is it? A chain of hair salons. It's not even related to medicine, but the thing is, it's my father's business, and it brings us a great income. But does it bring you personal satisfaction? No, I'm telling you, I'd love to switch to another field. I'd like to start everything from scratch, and most importantly, on my own, without anyone's help. That's a bold statement, but are you really ready to give up everything for that? Apparently not, Laura blushed. Listen, I don't want to ruin the mood and think about business right now. Let's call each other, or better yet, meet. I have an offer for you that will be hard for you to refuse. Laura was about to thank her when Valeria finally approached them. Good evening, she greeted them coldly. Nice to see you, Olivia. Not Amanda Brooks anymore, Olivia said with a sweet teasing. She definitely didn't want to insult Valeria, but she did want to poke fun at her a little. She definitely deserved it. Well, I guess you have another identity. Congratulations on the award. Thank you. If I had known I'd be invited here, I would have dressed more modestly. Olivia looked at her outfit. She definitely stood out among the other ladies. They were also dressed quite elegantly, but she looked like she had stepped out of a fantasy movie about a queen and her riches. She even felt a bit uncomfortable. Did Rosalinda invite you? Valeria asked. Actually, I received the invitation a long time ago, but I decided not to go. Manuel tried for a long time to convince me, but I had no desire to show up at a meeting with people who, she paused briefly to add meaning to the words, well, never mind. Manuel eventually persuaded me, and he came with me. Rosalinda called me when we were already in the car. Of course, I gladly accepted her invitation. Valeria seemed to get worse by the second. She looked, to put it mildly, not very good, as if her stomach might turn inside out at any moment. Are you okay? Olivia asked, noticing her strange behavior. Suddenly, Valeria fell to her knees right in front of her former classmate and started crying. Forgive me, she cried, clinging to Olivia. Olivia awkwardly tried to lift her, but it was all in vain. I've acted like a fool. And I still act like a fool. I'm materialistic, biased, hypocritical, and... Valeria, get up right now, Olivia suddenly said in a commanding tone. Laura had never heard her speak like this before. In university, Olivia had never shown her displeasure or anger. This had an effect on Valeria. She immediately stood up, wiped her tears, and began staring intently at poor Olivia, who was now attracting a lot of attention. What kind of circus are you putting on here? I hate humiliation. Especially when people do it to themselves willingly. I'm just ashamed and scared, Valeria whispered, her voice trembling. She wiped her eyes, trying to hold back her tears, but they kept streaming down her cheeks. I treated you so badly. I judged you without knowing anything about your life, about your struggles. I was blind and foolish, and with my envy and desire to seem better, I only ruined everything. Olivia remained silent, carefully observing Valeria. She saw in her eyes not just regret, but deep pain. This wasn't a game or an attempt at manipulation, it was a genuine confession. I always thought you were just a silly girl with a perfect student complex, whose only goal in life was to get an unnecessary diploma, Valeria continued, and her voice was getting stronger. In my mind, you were a traitor who would do anything to please the professors. I never thought about the obstacles you had to overcome. Now, seeing you here, I realize how wrong I was. You're a very strong woman, Olivia. You achieved success without compromising your conscience. And I sincerely envy you, but now in a good way. Laura watched Valeria in surprise. She had never seen her friend like this. There was no trace of envy in her eyes, only regret and admiration. Could it be that Valeria finally understood that you can't treat others like this? I ask you to forgive me, Valeria whispered, lowering her head. I was wrong, and I want to apologize to you for everything I've done to you, and not just to you. Valeria looked at Laura, and in her eyes, there was a glimpse of genuine pain. Forgive me, Laura, she quietly said. I was too focused on myself, not noticing how badly I was behaving. I didn't appreciate our friendship, our communication, I despised your ideas and interests. And now I fully realize this. Laura raised her eyebrows in surprise. She also felt guilty toward Olivia, but she hadn't thought that Valeria could ever apologize, at least not anytime soon. Just an hour ago, she had casually spoken about Olivia's mother's death as if it were some ordinary event. Olivia smiled. There was no anger in her eyes. She extended her hand to Valeria. I accept your apology, she said quietly, squeezing the hand of her longtime friend. We all make mistakes. What's important is learning from them and taking lessons. I was never angry with you. You were just the people who showed me what the world is really like, showed me its true nature. Valeria tightly squeezed Olivia's hand, tears of happiness sparkling in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for forgiving me. Laura smiled. This evening was filled not only with sparkle and luxury, but also with hope for a new beginning. A beginning where there was room for forgiveness and friendship, and Valeria had finally found a way to free herself from her inner demons, realizing that true success is not only a career, but also harmony in the soul. Laura stood on the balcony, gazing at the stars. It's beautiful tonight, Manuel whispered, standing next to her. The stars seem even brighter. Don't you think? You talk about these stars so often, Laura smiled. Even back in university, you always had some phrases about stars. You should have gone into philosophy, not medicine. Maybe, Manuel shrugged. But we're not defined by our education, we define ourselves. I see myself as a good person, with everything going well in life. How do you see yourself? Laura thought for a moment. Right now, I see a failure, someone who has nothing of her own, who hasn't achieved anything worthwhile over all these years and won't achieve anything anymore. I didn't ask you to list your flaws, he smiled gently. I just asked you to describe how you see yourself. And clearly, you don't suffer from low self-esteem. I don't think I have anything except my looks. And beauty is quite a transient thing. In a few years, I won't have even that. Well, now let's look at you from the outside. Manuel scanned her from head to toe. You're a good daughter, you support your family. You're smart and kind, just a bit lost. You're a good person, he repeated softly but with confidence, and you really are very kind. You've helped your loved ones, supported them no matter what. Even though you didn't like it, it was important for them. That means a lot. And the fact that you haven't reached greater heights in your career? Well, that's not a verdict, is it? You still have everything ahead of you. He turned to her, took her hand. His touch was warm and gentle. And you're beautiful, Laura, he continued, looking into her eyes, but your beauty is just part of who you are. You're much more than just a pretty face. You're smart, you're sensitive, and you have a kind heart. And that's far more important than any career. Laura was silent, listening carefully to him. Her heart was beating fast, as if something had melted in her chest. Her words about being unlucky now sounded empty and meaningless. Maybe she was worth something after all? A ray of hope appeared in her soul, and this light was ignited by Manuel. I know you've been through a lot, he continued, squeezing her hand tighter. But you've endured. You're strong. Don't forget that. He turned toward the city, which stretched out below them. The soft light of the streetlights reflected in his eyes. Look, Laura, he said quietly. These stars are so far away, but they're always here. They always shine, no matter what happens on Earth. And so will you. You'll always be able to shine, Laura, despite all the obstacles in life. Just believe in yourself. And for the first time in a long while, Laura felt hope. She turned to Manuel, and tears shimmered in her eyes, but now they were tears not of despair, but of joy and release. She hugged him, like a dear friend, pressing as tightly as she could to his shoulder. Thank you, Manuel, she whispered. Thank you. He hugged her back, and they stood like that for a long time, gazing at the starry sky, feeling each other's warmth and hope for a bright future. A future that didn't depend on other people's opinions or past mistakes. A future they would create themselves. In that embrace, there was nothing crude or romantic. They were simply supporting each other. This was exactly what Laura needed right now. The evening ended with a magnificent fireworks display. All the guests went out to the terrace to watch the spectacle. The lights flickered on and then dissolved into the air. It was like exploding stars. Laura hugged Valeria and Sophia, and in those artificial stars, she saw hope. Manuel simply enjoyed the moment with his beloved girl, and Laura realized that she too deserved happiness. It clearly didn't depend on material status or wealth. It came on its own. And happiness wasn't just in relationships, but also in friendship. Today, Valeria proved that their friendship still meant something to her. The next day, while the morning sun was just rising above the horizon, casting soft light over the city, Laura was already sitting in Olivia's office. The room was filled with light and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Olivia, looking very rested and happy, smiled at her with her dazzling smile. So, Laura, Olivia began, placing a cup of freshly made coffee in front of Laura. Last night seems to have changed a lot, and I'm glad I could contribute. I didn't know that last night I would look at life from a completely different angle. Laura nodded, taking the cup in her hands. Her hands trembled slightly, but she tried not to think about it. I want to offer you something that could change your life, Olivia continued, her eyes sparkling. I see great potential in you. You're smart, observant, and you have the desire to learn. You want to build your life on your own, without relying on others, and that's why I want to become your mentor. Laura straightened up and looked at Olivia seriously. She didn't expect such a proposal. She had been sure Olivia just wanted to talk about last night, share her impressions, and discuss her future plans. I offer you the opportunity to train in my clinic, Olivia continued. I'll teach you everything I know, and then you can take a position in my team. Laura was in shock. She couldn't believe her ears. The chance to work in such a prestigious clinic, under the guidance of such a renowned specialist and a longtime friend, this was a dream that seemed unreachable. A real miracle. I don't even know what to say, Laura whispered. Her voice trembled with excitement, and there was a lump in her throat. Just think about it, Olivia said, smiling. This is a chance to build a brilliant career and realize your potential. A chance you deserve. Laura looked at Olivia, and her eyes sparkled with tears. Not tears of despair, but tears of joy and gratitude. Thank you, Olivia, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Thank you, I agree. The sun was already coloring the sky with warm, pink hues when Laura, tired but happy, walked home. In her purse was the contract with Olivia's clinic. The document that not only marked the beginning of a new career, but also the start of a new life. A life that she would forge from her doubts and insecurities, and now she could achieve everything she had always dreamed of. Last night, with its sparkle, fireworks, and exploding stars, showed how beautiful, yet changeable, life is. The artificial stars reflected the true light that had ignited inside Laura. This light didn't depend on wealth or status. It was the light of self-respect, belief in herself, and in her own strength. And Valeria, with her sincere repentance, became the symbol of a second chance. The opportunity to change oneself, correct mistakes, and find happiness in forgiveness. Forgiveness of oneself and others, that is the key to true happiness, not the pursuit of a non-existent ideal of success. Manuel, with his quiet support and belief in Laura, showed that true happiness is not only about passionate romantic relationships, but also about peace, mutual understanding, and mutual support. Love, like friendship, is a solid foundation on which one can, and must, build their life. It is the very foundation on which everything else is built.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.